Today, and joining me now for that, former representative, if I can talk, Dr. Nan Hayworth, and president of Solidarity Strategies, Chuck Rocha. Guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Thanks, Rob.
Good morning.
Nan, I think I see this in both lights. I do think the president takes this too far and puts this blanket statement of fake news over everybody unfairly. But I think we also see that there is just kind of a mainstream, somewhat leftist bias coming from a lot of our media companies. What do you say?
Yeah, you know, Rob, having been a Republican running in a deep blue state, I know that there is a blue bias on the behalf of the major media outlets. It's not uniform, as you say, Rob, and, you know, certainly you can get fair coverage, but the bias can be quite subtle as well. Selective quotation, not getting a response, for example,
Sure.
when an opponent speaks. If you look at the work of the Media Research Center, they will tell the story with data that so much of the good news that really has happened for Americans about the economy, about initiatives from the
Sure.
Veterans Administration, all kinds of great stuff is not getting reported by outlets like the Boston Globe to the extent that they should be. So the president's frustration is understandable.
Chuck, what do you think? I mean, she makes a pretty solid point there.
Well, I think that if you look around at people around the country, they want news. They want the First Amendment. They want to get news in. The problem about Donald Trump is everything that he said is very salacious, and everything that's crazy is going on with Russia and spies and models. And so that's what the press covers, rightly or wrongly. And I'll even agree with Nan a little bit that sometimes the news covers that too much instead of what's going on in our economy or what's not. Right. But if you got a new puppy this summer and you named him John or Jay, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to everybody else in America. The majority of Americans want to know if our president's not telling the truth. We want to know that in the free press. And so when you call out the free press and say that they're fake news because they say that you're not telling the truth, that's not right, and we should report on that.
Yeah, you know, I've felt the liberal bias. I've worked at a number of media companies, and I've had emails come out that say, I remember when they told us that we can't say illegal immigrant anymore, when that flipped over and became undocumented immigrant. And all of a sudden, that was not allowed in any of our scripts. And I remember thinking, well, they are illegal. I mean, undocumented doesn't really cover exactly what's going on here. But Nan, to call the press the enemy of the people is escalating that to a whole other level.
It's definitely very blunt rhetoric. I do not feel that the press are the enemy of the people, but they do have an obligation to do some soul searching. You know, there's no question about it, Rob. They need to look at their own biases. And let's remember that President Obama, when he was president, also went after the media, but he kept it very selective. Primarily, he went after Fox News, and I don't remember most of the rest of the media taking umbrage at that. Somehow that was okay. That was also an attack on the free press, and we do need to have a free press, and we do need to respect the First Amendment. That's
true, Chuck. I mean, the former president went after Fox pretty hard. He just didn't send out these salacious tweets. He did it very silently. He was very subtle, which kind of kept him under the radar.
Let me take on this notion of bias. I work in congressional races and races all around the country, from Providence, Rhode Island down to Tampa Bay. And if you go to these local newspapers, you'll see a bias on the right as well. I think there's a lot of bias to go around. Just like in deep red East Texas, where I'm from, the Tyler Morning Telegraph, you go in there and do an op-ed, you don't see no liberal that's going on in East Texas. So you got to take this on by place if you want to really get down to the root of the problem.
That's very true. All right. Both sides of this make good arguments. It's a tough one. And we thank you guys for your perspective this morning.
Happy birthday, Rob.
Happy birthday, Rob.
Hey, thank you.